Greetings, greetings, greetings. I hope all is well with everyone. Welcome to week 4, and welcome to week 4 of kinesiology, and glad to have you. So this week we're going to talk about the shoulder girdle and the shoulder joint. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview. So you have assignments posted in the week 4 folder, um, and want to explain. Actually, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that for the end. So let's go ahead and jump right in and talk about the shoulder joint. So for the rest of this course, we're going to talk about different areas and groups. So the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about the shoulder. So the shoulder joint, the shoulder girdle, the shoulder joint. We're going to be talking about upper extremity musculature, the hip, the knee, the ankle, et cetera, and you'll have a journal assignment. So I'm not going to save it until the end. So you'll have a journal assignment associated with these areas to allow you to really dive in from a knowledge standpoint and learn the origin, insertion, and action. So I was debating on whether or not we were going to do that this semester, but we are. So we're going to take different areas. We're going to break them down. You're going to break them down. You're going to create PowerPoints, recording yourself doing particular movements. And there's a rubric and an example posted in the week 4 content. So with that being said, we're going to go right in just for a quick overview for a few minutes and talk about the shoulder girdle. So the entire upper extremity depends on the shoulder girdle to serve as a base from which to function. So this is, the shoulder girdle. So this is an anterior view. So here we have the humerus, we have the clavicle, and then in this posterior view, we have the scapula. So you can see the scapula. And so the entire upper extremity depends on the shoulder girdle to serve as a base from which to function. So it is the only attachment of the upper extremity to the axial skeleton via the scapula. And its only attachment is through the clavicle and SC joint. So if you can see here closely that this is our scapula, and in this particular view, we get an opportunity to see our joint. So we get a chance to see our sternoclavicular joint and our acromioclavicular joint. So that's the attachment for the upper extremity. So it's the only thing holding it in is our AC and SC joint. So the scapular and clavicle, they move together as a unit, and the clavicle's articulation or movement with the sternum is the only bony link to the axial skeleton. So this is a very unstable joint. So the shoulder joint, me personally, I am a chronic subluxer. So if you don't know what sublux means, look it up. Subluxation. So I'm not gonna tell you. So, but anyway, I want you to look that word up, and so it'll tell you a little bit more about my shoulders from a personal standpoint. So they move as a unit together, and the only joint and bony link to the axial skeleton. So axial skeleton is the brain and spinal cord. So, and then you have your appendicular skeleton, which would be your appendages. So your arms and legs. um, so we have some key bones, the scapular, the clavicle, and the acromion that you want to be mindful of. As far as joints are concerned, you have the scapular thoracic joint, and see if you can get another visual here and imagine that your rib cage, the scapular, that your ribs are here, and that the scapular moves on the rib cage. So the joint motion occurs at the SC joint and to a lesser amount the AC joint. So the sternoclavicular joint, so this is our clavicle, and this is our AC joint. So you have a little ligament that would be in this area, and then you have another ligament that's in this area. So I don't know if any of you got any members of the class have ever had a shoulder separation that usually occurs, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the actual joint itself. So the SC joint is a multi-axial arthroidal classification, and the movements, so anterior movement, protraction about 15 degrees, retraction about 15 degrees, superior, inferior, and then some very slight gliding movements, rotating movements. So that's kind of a quick overview. So in the shoulder, you have abduction of the scapula. You have adduction. So abduction, which is a word that you should know the definition of at this point. So abduction means away from the midline, and then adduction would be toward the midline. Scapular movements, you have upward and downward rotation, which occurs. Now, my shoulder doesn't really articulate, but if I lift my arm up, my scapular is going into downward rotation. And I bring it back down, it goes into upward rotation, if that makes sense to you. And if not, it will. And then we have scapular depression and elevation. So you'll be able to see these in the PowerPoint. So the shoulder joint and shoulder girdle work together in carrying out upper extremity movements. So the shoulder girdle is not dependent upon the shoulder joint and its muscles. So you go into a lot of movements in the modules that you have for this week, and also when you complete your assignment. So you'll go into the muscles, the joints and the nerves associated with the muscles. So you'll learn the origin, insertion, and action of muscles like the trapezius, the levator scapula, the rhomboid, and also learn some of the brachioplexus nerve endings. So for those who have ever played any type of contact or collision sport, you may or may not have experienced a brachial plexus injury. So that's my pit bull in the background. If you can hear him, he obviously doesn't care about this discussion. But nonetheless, the brachial plexus um, is C1 through C5, and well, actually, the brachial plexus is from C5 to T1, and you'll learn, and you'll continue to learn um, what this is. And so, but anyway, if you played a collision sport, then one of the things that may have happened to you is, if you tackle, if you're playing football in particular, and you tackle improperly and your head's turned, you may have had what's called a burner or a stinger, where you had, a burning sensation going down the arm and you couldn't lift the arm. And that's a brachial plexus injury from C5 to T1. And so, and again, you'll learn what all these what these nerves are, these nerve branches, and what they control, because it's very important to know if they are compromised. So, from a joint standpoint, we talked about this a little bit last week. We talked about the rotator cuff. So rotator cuff muscles are your supraspinatus, your infraspinatus, your teres minor, and subscapularis muscles. So the rotator cuff muscles, now this is a gross attachment, meaning a large attachment of the rotator cuff, but they all are here. And you will be able to, next time we meet, you will be able to discuss the rotator cuff origin, insertion, and action, and also the innervation associated with those muscles, and what happens when any of those muscles are compromised. So that's all I have for today. I don't want to bore you with a long video for today, and especially since we don't have any feedback. So you guys aren't here for this particular discussion. However, we will discuss, go a little bit more detail, talking about the structures and injuries on next week, after you have completed the chapters 4 and 5 modules on the shoulder joint and shoulder girdle in McGraw-Hill, and gone through some of the PowerPoints and started your own assignment, PowerPoint assignment, journaling the shoulder joint and shoulder girdle. Have a great day. Have a great week. And do not hesitate to reach out to me. God bless. Stay COVID free.